Scates here with Scates Realty and Pink Door Management. I want to thank everyone for your time and your patience. I know our response to your emails and calls have been a little bit slower than normal. We have been obviously a little inundated between the COVID-19 and the stimulus bill. We've been on several Zoom calls and legal calls trying to make sure that we are all on the same page, not only county but state and federal. To make sure that we are following all the rules. A lot of the calls have included attorneys and tax accountants to make sure that we're able to answer all of the questions for our landlords and investors, as well as our buyers and sellers and tenants. So hopefully this video will answer a lot of questions and kind of calm down any kind of nerves that you may have. It may or may not be considered good news, but hopefully it'll kind of help. So let's start with Pink Door Holiday Homes. That is our sister company, and currently that is pretty much on a stay, which means because of the COVID-19 and the stay-at-home requests from states, local, counties, and federal, the vacation industry is pretty much at a halt. So all of the bookings, they were canceled. Airbnb, HomeAway, and any personal bookings needed to be canceled. No new arrivals were allowed. Plus, the travel industry wasn't allowing them either. And it wasn't just affecting small investors like yourselves. It also stopped any hotel bookings, all the theme parks, Disney, the hotels, pretty much that entire strip was not allowed to accept any new bookings. Unfortunately, we were hoping to be able to at least open it up for the 30, 60, or 90 days for people that are kind of stuck. They were either in the process of building a house, closing on their house, relocating, and sold their house, and now are not able to go anywhere. So we're trying to see what options are available to them, but we don't want to really break any laws or rules. So at this point, Pink Door Holidays Homes is on a stay. However, if you've closed on your property or you're in process of closing on your property and it's going to go to the Pink Door Holiday Homes department, then that will still be allowed, and as long as they're vacant, we're able to still go in, do inventory, get information for you, take photos, and of course take our 360 tours. We have been ahead of the industry in that area where we've been able to do 360 virtual tours for people, because most of our clientele is either relocating, and whether out of state or out of country, coming towards here, and they're able to see the entire property and get kind of like a feel walking tour through the home, and it makes it easier for reservations. If the property is new and it's not furnished, we can still see if the companies are still willing to furnish them, but at this time several businesses are closed because they are not allowed out or considered part of the essentials. Now, even though housing is considered essentials, and in the state of Florida we're allowed to work, we have been given strict guidelines, so we do have to be careful. Now, we are able to show vacant homes, but some of the owner-occupied or tenant-occupied, those are starting to become a little tricky, and it could cause issues with insurance and liability. So we're taking those case-by-case basis. It depends on the person or personnel that are in the house. So that is Pink Door Holiday Homes. If you have any questions about placing a home in the Pink Door Holiday Homes Company, or if you want to check on how you're able to do some bookings, feel free to reach out to them because they are still working. And that is info@pinkdoorholidayhomes.com, or you can visit the website www.pinkdoorholidayhomes.com. Okay? So the next thing is Scates Realty. For all of those that are looking to still buy, yes, there's still some good deals out there. At this moment, there isn't those back in the day recession deals, but they're still out there. We do have a few local investors that are able to help. Unfortunately, if you were trying to purchase a property and you were using investment companies like Lima Capital or Cabbage or any of those large groups, a lot of them have bolted and left the state of Florida and other states, and they're not purchasing anything. If you had a Zillow contract, unfortunately the Zillow contracts are dead, and it's not just Zillow. I'm not just picking on them. a lot of the investors have left, and they have placed a hold on purchasing. So if you were in the process of buying a house, a lot of those financings has fallen through, and they're on hold. So Scates Realty, I've always said we're a local company. We help local businesses, and I will always say use your local lender and your local realtor. So hopefully we'll still be able to salvage some of those deals. Luckily, we were able to get the last few ones closed, and lenders, they are on a scramble because a lot of changes have been made. So for Scates Realty, the majority of the closings have gone through. There is a COVID-19 addendum that can be used, but I do suggest that you speak to your realtor directly. As always, you could speak to your legal counsel as well. So any questions on still purchasing investments, or if you're in the process of closing, feel free to reach out to me, and I would be happy to assist you on that. As a real estate broker, I am a little different as far as when it comes to real estate and realtors, so I'm able to assist you a little bit more. So let me know, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. But your realtor and your local lender are your best friends in this time. So, pink door management. Yes, there is some interesting changes that are going on right now with the stimulus bill. Now, I opened up the company in the recession, so I remember back in the day when we had foreclosures and short sales, and I am certified for short sales and foreclosure assistance. So I remember all of the things that we were going through. So the one thing that I'm going to state is, even though there is a foreclosure moratorium right now, the banks are still at their good old version of don't ask, don't tell. So what I have sent letters to all of the landlords, and I've stated, hey, please be prepared. I know I used to ask for most people, tenants and landlords alike, to have at least 3 months of reserves. Unfortunately, we're probably going to be looking at retweaking that policy and suggesting that people have maybe 4 to 6 instead. But that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about the mortgages for the investors. Even the stimulus bill, it's going to cover mortgages that are FHA or basically Fannie Mae, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac backed. So a lot of y'all didn't originally think you were going to become landlords. Maybe you were going to try that landlord thing and it was really good. And so some of your original mortgages are still backed by the government. So you're going to have to speak to your servicer. Now, I still suggest, even if they're not, to still speak to them anyways, and ask them for the exception. So now what you're able to do, and please be very careful, make sure that you ask for the terms, get it in writing, have them send it to you, because I remember what it did last time. So in theory, you're able to call your servicers, so whether it's Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, SunTrust, etc., and call them up and say, hey, I'm having some difficulties because of the COVID-19. You don't have to provide proof. They are not allowed to ask for proof, so please let them know. Just make the statement, hey, I'm having an issue. I might have some issues paying my rent. My mortgage. What is it that your bank is doing? And they can tell you that they can tack the payment to the back, or they can do a forbearance. They're allowed to do 180 days. And then at that 180-day mark, if you feel like you need an additional 180 days, you have to call them before the 180 days expires and ask them for additional time. Here's the pause that I would suggest you take before you do that. If you extend it for 180 days, then at that moment, on your 4th month, you're going to have to pay all the 3 months plus that mortgage, and they may charge you interest or late fees. Now, in the stimulus bill, they're not allowed to charge you interest rates for that month that you ask for the forbearance, and they're not allowed to charge you late fees. But if the bank's not going to abide by that because they're not going to get assistance from the stimulus, then they're going to make their own rules, and that's what happened back in with when we had the recession. So be very careful. If you can pay your mortgage payment, pay your mortgage payment. Now, if the mortgage payment is um, tacked onto the back of the loan, they're going to go ahead and send you some information. I've heard some banks are doing a balloon payment later, so again, be very careful with what you're signing. Ask for it and make sure you read it and speak to your legal counsel, maybe your accountant as well. Now, obviously, if there's no mortgage on there, there's really no exceptions on there. If it's part of a portfolio and they're not part of this, that's not going to be in there. But again, reach out to your mortgage company, let them know that you want to extend it, and then confirm that they're adding it to the back of it. Now remember, they're only adding the mortgage payment to the back. So your taxes are still due. So property taxes, no matter what, they're going to want their money, and it's always the first thing that comes out of a payment anyways. And your insurance still needs to be paid for. This is not the time to not pay your insurance at this time. We've already had a few companies leave the state of Florida, so this could be a perfect time, however, to review your insurance payment and see if you have the most adequate coverage, and if that pricing that you have is a good price. Maybe you can get something that's better or compatible for less coverage. Now, and I am looking at my notes because there's so many things that we've been going over, and I want to make sure that I have everything and I remember everything to tell you. Again, you don't have to ask for, they can't ask you for permission. Now, if you were in a situation and that you know of for a friend or a family member or something like that, if they were going to be at a part where they've missed a mortgage payment and they were maybe afraid of foreclosure, at this time there is a foreclosure moratorium, so that's good for them, and hopefully they can catch up and pay that before it's lifted. So, landlords, with the biggest question that y'all want to know is, am I getting my rent? There is an eviction moratorium on. What that means to you is, normally if a tenant doesn't pay, we post a notice and they have to pay or vacate, and we cannot do that now. So for the next 120 days they have been stopped. Now, some states have put in their own. So if the state says that there's no foreclosures for 45 days, because we manage so many properties in different counties in the area, it's dangerous for us as a company to pick and choose which one. There's just too many options. So we're going to go by the federal state law, because if we go by federal, that protects everybody, our company as well as the employees and the investors in properties, because we're staying consistent. So we're going to be following the federal law. The federal law states that 120 days is what we're allowed to give the tenants. Not allowed, we must give the tenants 120 days. So if a tenant calls and says that they can't pay the rent, we're going to try to make a payment plan or some kind of option available to them to try to figure out and get them to pay the rent as much as possible, as quickly as possible, as soon as possible, because we know that that rent payment is very important. So you're not able to file evictions during this time. So if you know somebody, or if you're doing a self-managing, remember that you're not allowed to do evictions. You're also not allowed to send notices. You're not allowed to charge any fees, any late fees, any posting fees, any notices. There are no servicers that are going to go out and place a fee on a tenant's door. You cannot give a notice to have them move, and you can't, there's also if you were in the middle of a renewal, you might not be able to do that renewal, or a refusal to renew as well. So be very careful. If you have particular questions, please reach out to us and we'll go over those case-by-case basis. But at this time, you cannot do a notice to vacate, and you cannot file for evictions. You can't charge any late fees. You can't accumulate those late fees or any kind of charges at this time as well. So what's going to happen is, we're still, even though we're asking you, the landlord, to make sure you have some reserves, ask for the mortgage company to see what they have available to you as far as deferring the payment. we are still asking the tenant to pay their rent because we know that that check just doesn't line somebody's pocket. It does actually do a lot of things like paying the property taxes, the insurance, any overhead, any property management fees, the utilities and stuff like that. If you are self-managing and you do not receive rent, um, try to do a payment plan, but also remember that um, you can't shut off any of the utilities and you can't refuse to do any repairs. So be very careful when you're self-managing. Hopefully this might be the time where you realize that a property management company that does this on purpose and professional is really there to help you out and not just collect money either. So now back to the notice to vacate moratorium that we have in place as well. Pink Door Management, we normally do our renewal request 90 days out. So at this time, we were already had sent out the notices. Tenants had already stated that they wanted to renew. Some tenants had stated that they were going to go ahead and vacate. And so we were okay there. But anything from March 18th forward, we're not able to do any kind of notices. Now, if we want to send out a renewal, it also has been stated that if you were normally going to ask for an increase on a renewal, you may not be able to at this time. If you were going to leave the rent payment at the same amount, we can offer that to the tenants, but also we've been advised that we should wait on the renewals. Now, hopefully before this is over, none of the tenants will be on a month-to-month and will be able to move forward. So we're still going to ask you, do you want us to prepare the renewals just in case? We did have a few situations where some of the tenants were in process of leaving and then their travel plans were canceled, the relocation was canceled or placed on hold, and so we've reached out to you directly to make some changes for them. So that was pretty easy. So we're going to be moving forward. Now, for those of you that want us to make payment plans, well, hold off. First off, please, please, please do not speak to your tenants directly. This is the time now to basically state, I have a, please speak to Pink Door Management. They are the agent that we have hired. Because if you make arrangements and we are not aware of this and you do this without us, we're not able to represent you or assist you or give any advice to be able to assist you on there. A payment plan has to be done in writing. So for those of you that are self-managing, or if you have friends that are self-managing, let them know that if they make a payment plan, it has to be executed correctly, because the way this is going to work is after the 120 days, if that 120 days the eviction moratorium is lifted, you then are required to give them an additional 30 days. After those 30 days, then if the tenant has not caught up with their rent or honored their payment plan, then you are allowed to start posting for the 3-day or vacate. And then when you're in front of a judge, the judge may or may not accept the documents that if they weren't executed correctly, and they may tell you to please start again, offer a payment plan, and go from there. So at that point, you've already missed 4 to 6 months of payment. So you really want to make sure that you're doing this correctly. If you have a property under management, have them speak to the property manager. This is not a time to try to make changes or additional side deals. You want to follow the law. If you may feel like you're doing a benefit to the tenant to create this payment plan on the side or a different payment plan for that particular family, but you may cause a discrimination issue, and the Disparagement Act, they don't play. If you break that law, they will go after you, and some of the fines can start off at $10,000, and heaven forbid, if you cause an issue with fair housing or ADA, those fines start off more closer to the $65,000 range. So be very careful with what you're maybe trying to do, if you're self-managing or not. In property management, we are part of NARPM, that's the National Association of Residential Property Managers. We learn and train and work with other property managers that are professional, that are have legal advisors on our team and accountants that know what it is that they're doing, and they are educated on especially things like the stimulus bill, because everything that we're going through right now is totally different. So now, if you put your tenant on a payment plan, we have to be very careful, because we are not allowed to report any late fees or any late payments to the credit bureau. Now, you have to be careful, because right now, if you make a mistake and it's done inadvertently, there are no issues. However, there haven't made any statements on if they're going to waive any fines. But we all know that FCRA, and that's the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if there's a violation on that, they will go after you, and so you have to be super, super careful. So again, if you're doing a payment plan and you're self-managing, be very, very careful on how you adhere to these policies. You don't want the credit bureaus to be sent any late payments if you have your tenant on a payment plan. Now, you can report that after the 120 days moratorium once it's lifted, but we're unsure if you're going to be able to state that they were late those particular months and then only start off with once it's been lifted. Again, the judge has to sign all of these, so be very, very careful. Your ongoing expenses, and we know that a payment plan and receiving some rents is better than no rent, because again, we understand that you have to pay for property taxes and insurance and repair bills, management fees, and anything that beyond the mortgage payment. So now, if you are self-managing, or if you want us to do repairs, let's talk about repairs. If you include the utilities into the rent, you must keep those on. You are not allowed in the state of Florida to just turn off utilities if you're not getting rent, and you're also not allowed to refuse repairs if you're not getting rent. So there is a few guidelines that we have to go over. I know some of you guys were maybe a little frustrated because we didn't do some repairs, and there has been a shortage on vendors. Some vendors will not be going out. Some vendors have closed their doors, and then we also do have some vendors that are sick, so we're not sure if they have the virus, but they don't want to go out into public just in case. So what we've been told is if the repair is deemed necessary, it's a health risk, air conditioning, AC, refrigerator goes out, if it has something to do with code enforcement, then those repairs must be done, and we have to make sure that all steps are taken to make sure that nobody can get sick and there's any issues. If a repair was just kind of like a standard repair, all of those are on hold and they're not allowed to be done, but they are being tracked and taken care of. And once we're allowed and the stay has been lifted, we'll go ahead and schedule the vendors and send them out. And that is mainly a liability and safety risk, plus some of the tenants don't want people in and out of their house. Currently, we have some tenants that are either going through chemo and radiation, we have some that are pregnant, we have some that are elderly, and they are a higher risk, so we really don't want to put that liability against the insurance companies or the landlords. So we're taking all precautions that we can. Currently, even though I do work from the office, the rest of the staff is working from home, and we're doing virtually, just like the Zooms and cameras and videos such as this. If you have reserves, I do suggest, if the mortgage companies are not willing to work with you, which some of them are, some of them aren't, I would try to at least pay the mortgage, and then we will just keep going from there. If you're not paying the mortgage, or if you're unable to pay the mortgage, or you've made some kind of arrangements with your mortgage company, please let us know so we can keep track and kind of help and make sure and assist that we know, so when this is lifted we can try to get your payments or process yours as quickly as possible. A lot of the tenants have been either paying their rents or contacting us as quickly as possible. They understand that their rent pays the mortgage. Now, we have been lucky, not other counties have not been, and unfortunately I've seen some things on Facebook and the media where they're telling people not to pay the rent and it's for greedy landlords and you're just lining their pockets. We all understand that the majority of investors started out with just a necessity to rent a property out, and then it became a comfort level, and then some of y'all have become investors and been able to purchase more and more. So no matter what, we understand that whether there's a mortgage on there that's backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or if it's been paid in cash, that property still incurs bills, and we're going to try to get them paid as quickly as possible. Let's see. Now, a few of you guys have also asked me about the different programs that we had available. If you did not sign up for the landlord protection program, it is still available to you. You are able to sign up for it, but they have made changes, so effective April 1st. The policy benefits are still available, but before, where you had to, the tenant had to make at least two rent payments, now the policy has to be in effect for the first 90 days, and then it drops down 50%, and then the available amounts are still available as far as the different policies and programs. So we're able to get you the different ones. So if you're still interested in adding the landlord protection program, let me know. It does cover rents starting off at $1,000 on up, and it can assist you with maybe using that insurance to pay at this time. If you already have the landlord protection policy in place and you have not filed for assistance, please let us know and we'd be happy to get that started for you. And I want to say, I think we've talked about a little bit of everything. The inspections, all of the inspections that we were going to do on the properties obviously were placed on hold. As soon as we're able to, we will do that again. If you want us to do a 360 camera inspection on that, we have to confirm with the tenants prior to us doing that, because a lot of their private information, photos and personal items would be in that video. So we'll ask, but if it's vacant, all of our vacant properties will be having a 360 tour, and those will be in your portal on your AppFolio file. A lot of y'all really like using that system, and honestly, that's the easiest system to be able to use, especially in this time, because with everyone on the internet and on the phones, everything's kind of like struggling, and it's easiest to reach us through the AppFolio system, because your owner portal and your tenant portal, for some reason, goes through real quick and clear. That was the best thing we had during the hurricanes, because while our internet and our phones were down, that system was working, and that's because it's cloud-based and housed securely in 2 different states. The courts, I'm not sure when the courts will be open, but they are going to be a little bit backlogged, so no matter what, we're going to continue to try to work with our tenants and our vendors. If you are interested in ending the lease, we will have to figure out the time frame and the guidelines of what you're allowed to do, and this is of course if the lease is close to the renewal time. If you want to increase the rent at a renewal time, we're going to have to double check with legal to make sure what amounts you are allowed to do that with. And I think the only other thing I can't stress enough is please stay in contact with us regarding your mortgage and your payments, and absolutely do not speak to the tenants or the vendors at this time. Just let them know that you do have Pink Door represents you as your agent. This way we can make sure that you are staying within the legal liabilities. The last thing we want is a lawsuit to happen for fair housing violations or a Disparagement Act violation as well. Hopefully we've been able to answer everything that you had questions on for either Pink Door Holiday Homes, your short-term vacation rentals, or Pink Door Management, your long-term managements, or Scates Realty, your real estate. A few of you had asked about what you would be able to do as a sole proprietor or owner a business owner as far as the payment protection program, or if you were able to utilize the different programs that are available, I would just suggest that you reach out to you, because I'm not sure how the economic injury disaster loan or the emergency fund grant loan would be available to you. I guess that was wrong. It's not a grant loan, it's a grant. Um, I do have Kimberly Bates. She is one of our tax accountants that we use here in the state of Florida, and even though she is here locally to us, she is an enrolled agent with the IRS, and that just means that with over 20 plus years of her experience, she is able to help you with any kind of tax consequences that you may have, or assistance with the payment protection policy, the PPP program, or the EIDL program. She has clients not only all over the United States, she has several clients internationally, so she's able to zoom in and work with you and talk to you and answer some questions for you. So if you would like Kimberly Bates' information, I'd be happy to give that to you. Her Facebook page is Solutions, and she has been extremely beneficial to our company to be able to guide us to send you information. So hopefully I've been able to answer some of your questions. I know some of y'all I've honestly never met except for on technology, on WhatsApp and Zoom, and I just have to just let you know that we appreciate your time and your patience. We most absolutely appreciate your business, and we will all get through this together. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we will assist you as quickly as possible. Thank you again, and hopefully if you are in the state of Florida and you're able to visit us, you can pop in the pink door and visit us. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day.